Good morning, or whatever it is, wherever you are. So, there's been a couple things that have been bothering me about this for a while, and I'm finally making some time to look into it. So, this setup isn't actually too bad. I probably want at most 1-1, and maybe not even that often. So, one of the things I've been thinking about is that maybe I should really be picking more on notes per second with some sort of limit on bad scores. Like, I wouldn't mind if it was a harder song I happen to do really well on, but I'm kind of excluding that, trying to not to get too many of the ones. So one simple thing I could try is to do a straight notes per second pick and then see how that lays out on the difficulty-wise. A lot of this is these are older notes. Yeah, pick. So I've forgotten the function name that actually does the picking. Graph data. A lot of graph debugging stuff. Wait by play count. I think that might be the graph steps to the right. Possible steps. Evaluate predictions. Stat pick recent. Pick by meter, pick by score. Okay. So current flow. Theta selection range. This might be... Well, with meter you probably could get an exact. Pick recent. So we've got a flow. So this is going to require a custom flow, probably. Because we want to take something that's currently doing scores. Yeah, so like this is probably what we were using for that. Wiggle, manual, start score, mid score. So start score, say 1, 2, 4. Normally going by 1. Pick by... Now you're going to need you are going to need a range. Not going to need a theta, though. Okay, pick recent. Where is start? Ah. Hmm. Oh. Hmm. What ranges make sense? Well, if it's 1, maybe that makes sense. Okay, possible steps. Possible steps. Now, do selections have... cell.nps? So they should. So we've got low, high, okay, perform pick. We're not going to worry about bootstrap right now. Selection range. .03? So what was the other range I was doing? Right, because that's, yeah, that goes into here. Oh, and that's also the amount of wiggle. No? And now I have to remember... Okay, no, not that. Not that. Debug menu. Load overlays? No, it doesn't feel. Oh no, reload screen. Hmm. Oh, no, it actually preserved some stuff. Okay, so that's... Right, because these are actually fractional values, so that's sort of predictable that those would be drawn off. It looks like the rest of them have gone off the screen. So if I have a selection array for a random range of 1, ooh, we got down to some 59s there. Ooh, going up to 5.1. I mean, that's about where we were before. Nine, 8, 9. 3.8 slowdowns is probably fine. That's a little bit too much range. Mm. And I think this comes into the other side of things, which is we just need to tighten up our ranges in general. So that allows us to get out to a 5.1. Well, yeah, we swing up from the number we put in, and then there's an additional selection range on top of that. I mean, those are fine occasionally, but we need a spikier curve. So I can tweak the numbers here, and some of these are settable numbers. Actually, No, because everything right now is scaled to 0.1. Notes per second. I mean, I think there's some that are up to like 10, but the fives are starting to become ridiculous for me. Oh, this is a never scored because I rarely have my range down to 59. That's the estimated score for 9 on that, even though it's an old song. Hmm. Well, if I had completely independent curves, you probably wouldn't be able to solve for certain of them. Alright, all of these feel like 4.7. Those don't strictly follow. Three 3.1, 4.4, 5.1, 4.7. Yes, there are some other factors going into this. 3.8, 4.4. Mm. So we got a lot of hard problems here. It's like I wouldn't mind occasionally hitting a 1, but I don't want to hit them all the time. It's like you almost need. Well, one way I thought of tackling that is to have just sort of there's like one that is more than normal and one is less than normal in every set. And if it happens to land towards one of the ends, then we could have one in a session. But I still think probably need to have a compressed selection range towards the ends. So if I tweaked the ranges, this might still work. Well, let's look at the references a bunch of places. So we've got a wiggle range of 1. If we don't want to get down to the 1s a lot, we almost have to start with 2. And if we don't want to hit 5... no, not F2. F3? That's starting us out at 6. And we've still got a 0.9 down here. A lot of 95 through. A wildly misestimated 95 at that. And a 60 that's only 3.2. So 2.9, well, yeah, 2 plus or minus 1. So maybe we need a tighter range. And this could go to like 1.5, maybe 3.5. So was this just a really weird curve? 'Cause that seems extremely flat. Slightly more normal, but still 2.7, 3.8, 3.5. I can't see the ranges, the selection ranges here because this would need to be redone to be scaled for the numbers we're picking. Or I would have to have this thing sort of rescale the target flow from whatever we got. But we're printing, yeah, well, this is all printing based on scores, not on speed. 3.3, 4.2, 3.5, 3.8. So this is representative of the actual curve, it's just not being drawn. I wonder if I could rejigger that code to be easily scalable. So 0.9, 2.3, 3.1, 3.5. Where's a 4.2, 3.260? We're doing no score controls right now. Score-wise, it does seem to be evening things out, although I presume we're going to get a sawtooth pattern one of these days, or a whiplash pattern. It's just this isn't pulling that. Hmm. All right, what would it take? Well, the selection ranges aren't going to be accurate because we're drawing marks for scores, which I'm still sort of interested in. How easy would it be to redefine my parameters? Gosh, what do I even call this? Flow graph? Well, it has to graph current flow. Oh, that calls build flow, so that's kinda would be a key thing. It's a song list. Yeah. Well, I did publish it on Xevious a while ago, and I never updated the the post when I flipped it around. So, important point to note: this is not just a layout. This is a song picker. So it is going to play exactly this set. But it is. Let me look that up. Or. I know I had a Stepmania section down below. I don't remember if I linked this. No, that's Stepmania. So, okay, current flow. Is the selection doing everything? I feel like the selection's doing everything, which makes sense. Which, unfortunately, is that a graphics? Song list item, yeah. So I've got a whole bunch of scaling factors. And things here. Well, I've got a flow and a range. But I probably need to have more factors to be able to perfectly scale it based on what I'm putting in. And I'll pick. So we're setting the current item, the selection range. Oh, right. Which I don't think I ended up changing. And what's current? Oh, if it's the current item. But I would also need to pass some sort of scaling factor through to here. Need a baseline and a scaling factor, actually. Well, to keep it in line with where it used to be. Oh, so actually that's current flow, so that's not graphing the score anymore, is that right? 2.7, 3.3, 3.9, 0.5, 4.2. Well, it's showing a... Right, because that's for the range. And then the score is actually... cell dot very specific. Very specific mark. Or I can pull that out of the selection. We would need a base to make that easily switchable. We would need a baseline and a scale. And then this stuff would still end up being off. This is kind of getting... So we've got selection range, current. So we're drawing predicted score, flow range. Range times 2 times flow width, flow height. So flow width, local flow. And I think that's what I would need to be able to adjust that. Flow range. XY. Flow times flow width times flow scale plus flow baseline. Okay, yeah, that's actually showing the curve. It's not directly related to scores. So that's that's a faster song I did better at. Hmm. There's clearly some other factors to some of these, and then others actually seem to be matching up pretty good. So there's a kind of whiplash pattern, 3.3, 4.2, 2.7. So that's not graphing where the actual point is. I would need to have another point for the thing we're selecting, and then the score graph is just a different thing. So then this would need to have predicted score, actual score. I already call notes per second. Meter text. Score text. NPS text. NPS bar. NPS mark. So flow range. Now set size. Flow mark, flow height. Oh no, this is not going to predicted score. S predicted score and NPS mark. It's not flow, it's cell.nps. I'm not sure what color that should be. Okay, so that's the thing we're actually selecting for and where it is in that range. And then let's look at the score on there. It's probably going to be confusing as heck, but it'll do for now. Oh yeah, that actually is a... Yeah, there must be something going on in that song. The actual score is lower than, or is worse than the range on this scale. And it's just an arbitrary 10-to-1 scale, so what does that mean? I don't even know if 10 is the right value. Maybe it should be more like 9. Of course, then what's the inversion of that? Uh, 1 divided by 9? Nope. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Maybe 8's more appropriate scale factor. Still mostly less? Or is that even the wrong direction? Yeah, larger numbers would push that out further. I want to go the other way. Whoa, that may be 09. But yeah, that's what a 1 does. So that seems like a better fit for the total range. The scores don't actually mean anything relative to the boxes. But that actually does seem like you could get a halfway decent model. Wow. I mean, as far as predicted scores go, that's probably because there's a lot of number of note things that are in the model. Just on notes per second. Of course, no, yeah, we're picking by notes per second. Oh, this stuff is still off. All that would need to be redone. Hmm. So there's a 61, that's 4.2. So that's one thing. I think I still might need to do some tweaking of how we handle the endpoints. And I'm wondering if I should actually have functionality to choose the selection method. Of course, that's more settings. So for that, we would have to be able to communicate some of these factors. Does this draw any of the specific stuff? Bar, text. Group artist title, actual score, and PS mark. It does the arrows. Stages arrows on, stages arrows off. Yeah, so this would also have to get adjusted. So you have to go to flow scale and flow baseline. Oh, I don't even see the arrows. Now, is that because I bumped something? No. Oh, and my selection units are... Oh, right. The bounds checking is totally wrong for this. I'm going to reload everything. Which part's throwing it off? Oh. No, I didn't completely reset it. Oh. Oh, current flow. So should that not be the same? Okay, so by itself, that's way out there, which is not too surprising. Oh, actually... I mean, the range seems somewhat reasonable. Okay, so that's way over there. So I would expect... Oh, I've got this in some sort of scaled container, don't I? Yep, okay. Interesting. But that's scaled. And the others are not. What about... That's... not quite right? And expect it to be sent... Well, no, because this could still be within that range. That might still be accurate. Actually, for the settings it's doing, it probably kind of is. Ooh. Predicted 56, but 3.9 isn't terrible. Most of the ones I do see have... When it gets something that's a hard one, it is also a high notes per second. Hmm. I might want to try and define one curve that does limits on both, and then maybe have no upper end? Well, this is something I'm just going to have to try. So now, what would it take? We could probably go ahead and checkpoint that. Yeah, we need to do some things better. So that's something I just want to try out, see how it feels. Now, there are other issues, and this actually isn't very bad right now. This particular setup, and for testing, I want to return off the required minimum iterations per stage. Okay, pretty much go straight in there. Now, how do I tweak up the outliers? It really seems to like that one at 0.8 right now. Oh, so another... I've picked a notes per second scale that makes these line up really nice for me. So that's going to line up nicely for everybody. People who handle the higher note songs are going to see much higher scores across the board. How do we deal with outliers? Or rather, having a limit on how often we can do very, very slow and very, very fast songs. All right. Notes. We want to we are testing NPS-based selection to see how that feels. We are looking at tighter range for warm up, cool down. Okay, for occasional extremes, and generally I want curve improvements tend to pick the many curves. Those bits per second section might get us some more variation in that, just in terms of difficulty is not necessarily tied to notes per second. Okay, so that's testing, or to be tested. So right now, the curve is a sum. We have a start point and a midpoint and a simple ramp. And we add our variation to that. Of course, you need more settings to express how wide you want that. I already forgot what it was. Build flow gets our basic one. Right, because this actually does the flow in that system and got drawn in the other one. So we start with that. And then wiggle flow does target plus. Which is what we kind of want in the middle. Right, and that's doing the high resolution version of that. I think. Offset. We've got our basic target. Oh, offset, yes. That's just to get you different, because the curves don't always start in exactly the same place. So this would also require a scaling factor. Multiplying by the target, I don't think would do what we want. It would also have to have like a scaling curve to constrain it at those spots. Now we've got a scale, it would just have to be manual flow is 2 specific points. So I could probably use that to define a scaling curve. Now I might actually want to redo manual flow sometime, because I didn't want, Or rather, I didn't want to get too deep into trying to find some perfect mathematical curve that had the properties I want of a sort of like the dramatic arc you see for novels and such. We have the slow start, the peak, and then the cooldown. I just did a very simple ramp up, ramp down. And just having some variation, actually just having some variation at base level might solve some of my repeating the same levels issues. But we still don't want to have too much stuff that's super easy at the ends. So, given an allowed range, scale would have to be assumed to be the same size as that. That's all the places we call it. That's flow DJ scale. Right. That's that. So this is just this. So that part's easy. The tricky part is that we have a factor called score wiggle. Which is in that range. So we're not actually calling this right now. For testing purposes, what we're using right now is that. So that is going to be a manual flow. So it was a solid 0.5. So what do we want to say, like 0.2 to 0.5 for our current testing purposes? And that was having issues on both the high side and the low side a little bit. So it can't necessarily increase the range here. Maybe we could increase the middle range then. All the way to 1 would take a 4.2 to a 5.2, which might be a bit much. An 11, 4.4. Which is predictably a score of 49. So, yeah. Well, I guess even the 4s tend to be pretty challenging. So that would be an interesting one to see how that worked out. Oh, right, because I'm actually doing to 3.5. So that's why we're getting up to 4.4. And there's that stair step effect. And 1.5 with a very, very tight constraint. Okay. That sort of works. We just have to get all the other... So now what do you look like? And I'm going to have to switch things back to see what that actually looks like. So this one's no longer valid. That would be the rough equivalent. So that is for a rating-based one. That's a very, very simple version of that. Oh, and we did notes. So that's a tighter range. Oh, and iterations is a pure testing thing. I think I have to keep remembering to change. Tighter wiggle range for warm up, cool down. Buffer notes. Let's see if we can just find a better curve. So we want a dramatic structure. Math is storytelling. Oh, you do not like our color scheme. No, that's about stories by playing mathematics dramatically. Dramatic arc. I mean, that's going to be a formula. I mean, we can see if they've got it. Rising action, falling action. Eight-point arc. Yeah. Definition. Arc. Yeah, you just have to kind of try and find. How about Does this change the priority at all? Arc length. Famous curves. I'm looking for something that's sort of like the mean, I guess, but with a sort of an offset to it. Yeah, this is getting into the higher range of curves here. Yeah, like that, if you could kind of asymmetricize it. Um, Problem is I don't know how to find that. Investment. Laplace distribution. Looks pretty symmetric to me. Oh, well, okay, so maybe these two curves. So for a 1, 2, it's even. But those go to a pretty sharp point. I was hoping for something a little smoother. Probability distributions. What category is this in? Continuous probability distribution. Probability distributions. Continuous. I mean, we're picking particular points, so it's sort of discrete, but... Oh, there actually were previews there. Seems like it got too much of a sudden stop. One of those looks okay. That blue one's interesting. That doesn't have a preview. Log it normal. And these don't always tend to have previews. Some of those would be nice if you could invert them. Maybe. Yeah, with the baseline, I guess could work. Or bounded interval. I guess that's actually what I want. Which one was it? Independent draws. Population genetics. This might be too poorly defined for me to implement easily. Yeah, it's the probability density function of, well, probability density function. X alpha beta. Well, we've still got this B down here, where B is the beta distribution. Continuous probability defined on the interval, parameterized by two positive shape parameters. And this does not have a similar set of parameters. Probability density function is a normalization constant. So if this one is defining its probability density function in terms of B, does that mean that you would use the B of, well, this is B of AB, isn't it? Beta distribution, beta function. Euler integral. Oh man, my integrals are real rusty. So of xy, x minus 1, y minus 1. But it's an integral. Gamma function. But how would we implement that? Gamma function beta, integral representation of the beta function. Okay, there's an approximation. X is large and what? What's large for your terms? X equals 1, the complete beta function. And we were looking at X is A. We wanted a 10. Oh, software implementation. Gamelin. What does that do? Approximations. Stirling's approximating the Lancos approximation. So this is not stuff that's going to be easy to calculate, is what we're getting from this. For any positive number x, gamma blue line with the factorial blue dots, and Stirling's approximation red line, which looks kind of like a purple line. 0 to 0 to 0.5 to 1 is a kind of the range we'd be operating over. Why is this type of curve so hard to do? Maybe it would be easier to flip some of the other curves. So these are all fixed. That's movable. That would just have to be flipped. but much simpler to use due to simple closed form. F of x a b equals a b x a minus 1. So x is the coordinate. We are looking at the purple curve, which we'd have to invert. But maybe parameters can shift it over, because like this... What's the cayenne one? That one? So like purple is 2, 5. Cayenne is 2, 2? Okay, that's a little bit better. So if that's 2, 5, then... Well, green is extremes. This has very, very weird properties. But I want something like that, but inverted, which I guess you could just invert it. But this is the probability density function, so if we play with this, and I might want to get some of my curve visualization stuff back up. So do I still have that? Graph flow. Actually, was it by pick by? No, pick bootstrap. Where did I see that? Wiggle path? I have a notes per second graph? Well, I had a notes per second graph. Uh-oh. Where were you? Were you in the other menu? Toggle show errors. No, show recent errors. Curve graph. Ah, we also had that commented out. Okay, so that's just the wiggle. And that is completely reproducing why are you even getting the current flow? Oh, just for the size of it? Okay. So I would have to have a version of this that implemented the new formula, but that's probably a good starting point to think we understand what we're doing. Uh, and then I went wiggle path. Okay. F of x, a, b, where you have to pick our a and our b. I guess I go ahead and start with this one since it's sort of what we want. So we've got our scale, that scale. Oh, so the scale and offset here. Actually. So it looks like maybe a... Because purple goes to 2. Well, cayenne doesn't quite go to 2. And blue is an 0.5, which is like the asymptote of that thing. Equal B equals, we'll just start with that one to see that we're reproducing it. The scale, so the offset is really only useful for the sine wave. Let's see, scale for a sine, right, that's the waviness of it, so we also don't need that. The divided by scale we might need in some form. So A times B times... Ooh. We need some fancy pants powers here. Or actually, is it just... No, I want the literal character. So I don't know how versatile that is. So x. Now, is that x to that factor, or is that all of that stuff to that factor? That's where my mathematical notation's a little... I think it's just the x. And then all of that times 1 minus x. So this is only over the 0 to 1 range. And this, I think, is where the scale was. Now, it probably implements that same priority rule, but I get a little paranoid sometimes with this stuff. 4x in the range 0 to 1. It always forgets. this. And global x. Oh, right, 'cause it's not x, it's I. So that is not the curve we were trying to make. We have implemented something poorly. That looks more like this curve, maybe? The 5-1 curve? A times B. Oh, this has to be I divided by scale. It's going to be totally wrong for this formula. Now this makes me kind of nervous. I mean, this I could kind of rely on precedence for. Make that a little bit easier to correlate with the math. But it's still wrong. So our 2-5 curve is supposed to be bumpy like that. A times B times x to the a minus 1. 1 minus xa to the b minus 1. Nope, that's not it either. Probability distribution function. AB x to the a minus 1. 1 minus x to the a. B minus 1. What am I? I guess it's possible that their Lua exponentiation operator doesn't handle all of this stuff the way we'd like. Exponentiation. I really should just probably find the Lua reference. It's been a while since I had these references. I might even have the bookmarks here. Now, I've also forgotten which version this was. If this was like a 5.1 or a 5.2. Arithmetic operators. Exponentiation. It's the inverse of the square. Okay, so that means it should work. Why are my results different? How about we just start looking at stuff. Figure out what all these different components are doing. Okay, straight line, that's predictable. And these as constant factors should get scaled out in the graph. So we really don't kind of care. So what does x to the a minus 1 look like? Actually, x to the a minus 1 should be nothing because that should be x to the 1. Okay. X to the a is a little bit more interesting. This is 1 minus x to the a. Right, I must only scale the graph for positive values. But all of that is to b minus 1. How do you get that curve? Oh, maybe that's the multiplication of an upward and downward curve, effectively. So like this thing plus this thing. But that would be additive, wouldn't it? Okay, so that's an upward curve. Do we see any effect by putting in some of these other parameters? So 0.5, 0.5. That, yeah, we're calculating something wrong here. What if... Can we even get... So that at an 0.5 would be somewhere in that, like, middling range? Well, right, but I've got auto scale on the graph, so it's going to stick at the top. Man, what the heck? Not doing something right here. I'm wondering if that sort of sum of, or multiplication of graphs would get us there. So this formula does not work. I don't know why it doesn't work, but it doesn't work. Man, I found a online grapher that was actually halfway decent. Now I've forgotten what it was. Was it that one? Yeah, this is like the old Apple app. So we want... So there's X, there is... There's X squared. I've forgotten all the curves I tend to use. Wait, well, okay, so maybe something more interesting than one. And there's like, what do I see? That could give you a sort of scalable asymptote thing. Can we just kind of zoom in here? We're really only concerned with this range. It's a sort of asymptotic thing. So then what you'd need would be one of the ones that was approaching... No, that's the Y. Wait, that actually changed sign? Yeah, okay, so it's actually that. So maybe it needs to be X plus 1. Uh... That's sort of coming down, but I don't think we'd need to have it limited to here. Hmm. Oh, no, that is intercept at 1. So then... What? It got bigger? No, my range is off here. I'm looking at this range. Oh, you actually don't get small enough. Hmm. Oh, and you were a negative. Okay, that explains a lot. Yeah, that doesn't really get and you could get more of that. Well, if you scaled that entire thing by a lot. By arbitrary amounts. But then how do you move up? So the center point is based on this rising and this falling. I need to see this. But that actually starts to increase this above this point. I don't want it to increase above that point. And these are the kind of things, I don't have formulas that let me easily tweak the parameters here. This might be sort of okay if we could spread that out. And spreading. Actually, that would be X again, wouldn't it? Yeah, that might be too big of a curve. What else have I found that gets that sort of asymptote? That's very similar. Slightly gentler. But it's still infinite. I know I found something. It was like something that involved some weird yeah, something like that. Oh, I was going to lining that to the wrong line. But that's 0 to 0.5. So that kind of ends up being just as extreme. If you get it to flatten out where you want. Yeah, it's pretty much the same shape. And oops. That doesn't really move over any. Well, what's defining... Well, actually, this curve even... But that's a sharper rise. I don't want a sharper rise. I mean, it gets it up there, but it's still a very sharp rise. what moves that over? Well, the main thing bringing it down is actually we're currently using something based on this. Actually, I'd need to flip this as well. Let's flip the entire thing. What does that mean? Right, because it's defining the Y position, actually. So this is negative. Oh, well. No, because it's the Y again. And then this all has to be like x plus 1? Or is it minus 1? No. That's just messed everything up. I guess if I can calculate that, I can just... Oh, right. No. Is it 1 minus? That's very weird. Nope, not that. It's like you'd take the result and flip it, essentially. And I broke something. We lost our x. Oh, by the way, can you implement this? So this is it 5.2 or 2.5? Actually, do you allow variables? You might be able to handle this better. Oop. A minus 1. times 1 minus x to the a to the b minus 1. And that's another green line. So the scale's a bit off. Maybe it was supposed to be 5, 2? Huh. So this is also not calculating the reported curve. AB x to the a minus 1. Oh, this parentheses got in the wrong place. Okay. Times x to the a minus 1. And our curve of interest was, in fact, yeah, it was 2, 5. Oops. Times 1 minus x, 1 minus x to the a. To the b minus 1. Okay, so it's evaluating it outside of the valid range. But that's actually getting the right answer. Oh, I don't think I was cutting off the output here. It should have been scaling the whole thing. But this lets us, at least lets us play with the parameters a little bit. Yeah, so that will actually let you... Whoa, that has very weird effects. And play with our parameters a little bit, and we just want to kind of scale the output. That's probably to get the probability right. But this is just shape. So that's kind of the shape we want. But why cannot... Why do these not work? So I'm just curious, what is... Okay, so that's just... Well, at this scale, it's pretty much just a line. And... 1 minus x to the a that's a nice little curve. Oh, okay, yeah, you're doing all kinds of things on... Oh, and it's affecting both of them, too. Okay, so the x to the a minus 1 is kind of fun. So really, this is just, we're picking a parameter. But it happens to be a useful parameter. So a equal 2 gives us a straight line there. And then b is, okay, that's like a normal distribution function that is sort of acting on, well, sort of, acting on parts of that. And 1.5 is kind of nice there, but why can we not get this to implement? Well, that would be two curves, essentially, in here. So I don't care as much for the scaling factors. I could get these numbers to work out nicely for 2, essentially. But that's only to get an actual 0 to 1. Okay, so this, if we do a is 2 is 1.5. X to the a minus 1, that should be pretty much a straight line at this point. Yeah, okay, so that much is correct. So is it the other end that's going wrong? That's also a flat line. It's a flat line in the same direction. What should the parts of this look like? X to the a. Okay, that looks like a reasonably exponential curve. 1 minus x to the a. Actually is, okay, that flips it upside down. Oh, I wonder... And then I don't have any scaling going the other direction, so I can't really completely see that, but I can believe it's a curve. And then... is just a number. So taking that curve, that just bumps it out a little bit, essentially. Do I need this part? Oh. Amazingly, I do. Or are you just not drawing yet? No. Oh, subscripts cannot be empty? Well... Alright, it's not sensitive to B anymore. Oh, it's not sensitive to B anymore. So there's no shaping parameter there. You don't get the super nice curve. But that's a simpler formula, and I can just scale up for the constants I use. So there is no B. Although I was using 2 before. Yeah, that shapes it a little bit, so now I want to be more like 3. Uh-oh. We messed up our parentheses somewhere in this. Hmm. Right. This is only valid over 0, 1. So I would have expected to see something in there. But this is for... Yeah, I also have to do this. This actually has to be... So part of the problem here is our scale is all off. And maybe the B part specifically didn't work under those conditions? Is it B minus 1 or 1 minus B? And then we wanted this to be 2 using the actual formula. So we'd still want to have some degree of base, well, and we'd be adding our curves onto that. Now, yeah, these aren't not made to add right now. The question is, do we care about using the official curve? Because we can, because for the degree of control we want, I guess that makes for a gentler ramp, but eh. Oh, and I'd probably want to randomize the... Ooh. I'd need to know what our allowable range for this was. Oh, and I have to scale it again. Oh, we don't want it going that's quite that far. So like a 3 or a 4. We don't want to go that far. 1's too far. Like maybe 1.5 you'd allow a range for that? Create some slightly different arcs. That should get us a pretty reasonable range of effects. And then I don't know that we need that for the effect we want. So there's probably a name for this curve. I just don't know what it is. Because, I mean, this is a pretty simple idea. Okay. Actually, I'm wondering if that same scaling should have been applied here. But anyway. So that's just to see the overall thing. To do the... Okay, so we've got one parameter. So this has a... It's just an arbitrary constant. Okay. So we've got that. We would like to well, we've got flow path. We've got manual flow. All right, the weights. Yeah, there's some back calculation I'm going to have to do for some of this. So this is going to be, and here's where I wish I knew. Can you get the name of formula? List of curves. Well, that actually would have been a useful thing to... oh, it's a list. There's no pictures. Yeah. Could we just... Would that by any chance... Solution 4... Well, it's not the right formula. No. Oh well. Well, we're originally going for dramatic arc, so wait. Oh, tells you which. Wait. For this stage, are we using start factor or mid factor in which proportion? This is actually going to be a problem. It's essentially becomes 0 and 1 for the curve. Right? So arc weights. Well, arc weight. And edge is a specific thing from that. So x is going to be, well, we basically have to assume. No, that's a thing we can know. Stages. Arc weight. Oh, you return start factor, mid factor. To use this comparably. Oh, I haven't. Shoo. There is one little problem with this. It's just an arbitrary curve. And I have not yet done. So it's like at 1.5, it's about 0.5. I wonder if this is where the times A. Ooh, times A is actually, well, no, not quite. It's good around there. And an arbitrary, since that hits 1, an arbitrary multiplier would not do it. Hmm. Yeah, this is supposed to be a probability distribution function, which means the area is remaining constant. Whereas we just kind of want to normalize the entire thing to where our peak is. That is some significant variation. Yep. Is that where B comes in? Okay. It raises it up, but it doesn't. But it also can go pretty significantly above even the 1.5 there. Already. What's the range without? Without that multiplier, it rises up over there. But then it rises up too much. No, that's not. That's just divided by 2 on everything. But if we want to do by some fraction of a, Yep. How do we... I mean, I guess you could just go through at the end and normalize it. What we care about is the shape. Normalize factors. But this is for steps. Let's add factors using normalized factors. Steps dot factors. Yeah. So I could probably convert that back. Arc weights. We're looking at the range of this. And this is really just a number and then one minus number. It's not... Oh, but I was also considering... So by itself, this is like a 0.5 to 0.6 range. Well, 0.6 to 0.5, which is like... Yeah, 0.3. If I normalize that range, it would be in theory, you could could you do maybe a larger number? No. I don't know. Is that around 4? Would a linear-ish ramp work? Because we want to go from about, so that was about 0.3. No, times 3. From there. To about 2.1 there. There should be a simple formula for that. Yeah. And it's something like 0.6 plus a well, and that changes things. If you start multiplying it, or 2.1 times, yep. No, that is not a simple linear scale. You'd have to normalize it over that scale, I guess. Or my scaling factor is wrong, because that is just exactly that. So that's actually pretty close. For a fudge factor. So that gets you the weight at any particular point. I am going to and that will slightly change how this is, because you probably want to be going a little bit past the mid factor, or is the other one you're like always there? So that might change your selection range. That should get us a 0, 1. And then manual, and then, oh, you're going to use that function, so it has to be defined below it. Arc flow needs a arbitrary factor. Edges doesn't matter. Close stage. Start. Middle. Oh, right, that was these things. Okay. So this is going to be start times 1 minus times factor effectively. So we can go ahead and stick this in here for comparison. So this is going to be arc flow with a constant, I think we're starting with 3. Oh, this is like the entire thing. Because I'm just picking arbitrary values here. From there to there. And we're wiggling it with these. But I want the same wiggle. Manual flow might still be useful for that. Nope. Unexpected symbol, 944. Misbalanced my parentheses. A minus 1 there. Near equals. Oh, yeah, this used to be a variable. Okay, so in theory, that's our overall flow. The very gentle ramp. We hit our peak up around there, plus we've got the noise on top of it, so that might be adjusting where we hit that. Yeah, so that's that curve on top of that curve. It might be too slow of a start. It's possible I want something that's more of a dip there. Huh. Well, that took entirely too much time. All right, so how do we set this up? I think we're not going to use that just yet because we're still doing a lot of stuff here. Except that for this, well, I think a lot of things are not going to be well set up for this. Yeah, because this was all set up, oops, for these score values, which, so about the only thing we can do is just make sure we're using that everywhere. So that will be comparable, but just using notes per second. And turn that off. Right, because that's the peak point. And that used to be... yeah, it's still adding it. But I think the way I used that might end up reducing things. So, required minimum iteration, which I probably could reduce as we make progress. Wait. Okay, yeah, it was commented out to not commented out. Experimental, smoother curve, not currently enabled because we're testing notes per second stuff. Now you see, I went and, I think full screening it blanks out the display, but it will, yeah, that resets the screen size. So I am going to test notes per second selection, and yeah, so I got 49 here, even though it's only well, 4.4 could still be pretty fast. And I want to check just the notes per second selection and see how that goes in general. If it's feels better, feels worse. It feels completely arbitrary. Yeah, so I'm going to, that's the end of coding. But I'm going to be back in a few minutes to actually try dancing with the notes per second setup. I'm going to drop stream a little bit so we can actually get a better frame rate on this. And then I'll be back in a few minutes. Meanwhile, if you're just here for the modding and coding, thanks for watching. Thanks for, ooh, we did not get our host list today. Does Twitch have it? Yeah, Twitch has it. I don't know what's going on there. So that's about when I tend to stream. Thanks to the Mixed Games, Mr. Nicky Sturmius, Leopard Cat, Nasty Phase, Instant Speed Live, Joe YouTube NL, and Diddly Taco for hosting me. We'll be back in a few minutes to actually try dancing this.